Outside is raining, I have plenty of lunging, so I will stay in the car and I will do a video about lunging. Hi guys, this is Gabriele from nannuoshan, where we share the pleasure of drinking and discovering genuine farm tea. If you're new in our channel and you are also looking to expand your tea knowledge and brewing skills, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up if you enjoy watching this video. Today, yeah, I am on the road, I am in the car, the weather is nasty, I am in Portland, Maine. I was about to visit the city, but I thought, as long as it's still raining, I just have time to do a video. I have plenty of lunging with me, so I will do a video about lunging. And I don't really want to speak very much about the different cultivars, the origin. Well, lunging originally comes from, well, the very traditional lunging comes from the West Lake, Shihu, which is a lake in Hangzhou in Zhejiang. And it is actually in the very center of the city. And so I would say that the Shihu lunging, so the West Lake lunging, is not only the most famous, but it most likely also the most polluted. But likely enough, there are plenty of lunging also from other areas, not only from these very areas so close to Hangzhou. Just to remind you, Hangzhou has more than 10 million people, it's a huge city. But everywhere in Zhejiang and also in other provinces as far as Sichuan, there is longing produced. And I would say that those in Zhejiang have really their own name. And for example, you have the Dafo Longjing, that is the one produced in Sichuan, in Shichang, which is a county in Zhejiang, and they have their own name. And you can really find also much more affordable longing that are not really from the Longjing village, Meijiahu, and all the other places in the Shihu area, but nonetheless very, very good. But anyway, today I want to speak a little bit about another topic, and in particular is independently of the cultivar and of where the tea come from, I want to speak with you about the different grades of Longing and the different types of Longing that you can find on the market. And this idea came because just a customer wrote me some days ago and he told Gabriele, I tried the Dafo Longing that is currently online, and I was expecting a different taste. I was expecting more. He said he was expecting more a combination of all the flavors that are on earth, because this is how he experienced lunging. Now I don't know exactly what he meant by that, but after some discussion, I realized that actually what he was searching for was the classic traditional lunging, but this is not the only one available on the market. And I have here two examples. I'll try to show them first of all in front of the camera before describing them, and I'm sure you should be able actually to spot the difference between the two. This one here is the Dafon Longing, the one that actually that customer order, and this one on the other side is actually our winter longing. So both longing were actually produced in the same time, very early in the spring. In fact, actually, it was still winter according to the calendar, and you can see really that there is a very clear difference in the color of the two leaves. And the very difference here is that it's been processed in a different way. One, if you want, is more of a low fire, and one is more of a high fire. Now, the high fire longing is the traditional one. In fact, longing is known for being a high fire green tea, which pretty much reflects at which temperature the shaching and the drying was done. So longing is processed at a very high temperature, traditionally in the wok. It is a so-called stir-fired or roasted green tea, qiaoqing in Chinese. So it's this frying the green is this technique that is used for longing. But depending on the temperature and on the duration of that, you have very different results. So for a traditional longing, you go for high temperature and longer time, and that results in that very characteristic taste of roasted chestnuts that is so typical of longing. So if you are searching for the traditional longing, you want to search that the tasting note. And if you're unsure, you can ask the seller. You can check what description, which adjective he uses in the description. A seller, if it is a traditional Long Jing, would point out the specific chestnut note. The other one, the Dafo Long Jing, is more of a floral variety. I'm going to open the door now. It's really hot here. I hope it doesn't get too loud. And is more of the traditional Long Jing, sorry, the floral Long Jing, that sometimes is done by farmers when a Long Jing is from at the very beginning of the season, and so the tiny leaves are very, very fragrant and floral, and they don't want to kill those floral notes, those very sweet and fragrant notes, by heating up too much and taking out all the nuttiness. So they just do a low fire, and it results in that very bright color. So this is still wetting here. This is one of the main difference that you want to check out when you buy a Long Jing. Do you want a traditional one, high fire? Do you want a more low fire or floral one? Different seller might call it in different way, but you have to look at the leaves. If it is fresh and it's stored in the fridge, or it is very, very fresh, you should see that a floral one has very, very bright green, very, very clear and bright, while the other one, the traditional, has more a tiny bit darker color. It's not too opaque and not too dull, but it is definitely darker. So now, this is actually not the only difference in Long Jing. Another thing that you have to watch out is the age of Long Jing and how it has been stored, because the leaves, the very bright leaves like this one here, would then turn darker over time. And now it's I will try to show that to you, and it's very tricky to be able to recognize the difference between a high fire Long Jing and a Long Jing that actually just been stored improperly or too long time, because both are fairly dark, but are dark in a slightly different way. And I want now to show that to you. So we have here on one side, we said we have our winter Long Jing. This is from this year, very fresh and is a little bit dark. And I have here another one that is actually from last year, and it has been stored just a tiny bit, that I took a sample when I was there. It's already 2 or 3 years old, and I kept it, in this plastic bag that is transparent, so also sunlight tends to deteriorate the leaves. So let's see how they compare. Unfortunately, I don't have as much of these on this side. Oh wait, there is more. Wait, so that we can try to compare the two color. Those leaves were there for a long time, I see. So now it's a bit more difficult, but I will try to show it to you. So those are the two teas. The one with a lot of tea here is the fresher one, and this one is the aged one. And I don't have a better picture of the aged one, because we take the picture of the tea only when they are fresh, just before actually sale them, putting on sale. So this tea was actually still relatively bright in color at that time, but then over the time it has become darker. And if I look at the two now, and now you have also a little bit to trust me, because it's very difficult to render this through the camera. Maybe I will try to take a picture of them to show it to you. You have that actually the older one is more of a oily texture, and it is a bit darker maybe, but the very point here, it's even if the level of darkness is pretty much the same, you have that the fresher one looks more alive, and you have to search that that characteristic in the tea. This really looks a tiny bit older, if you want, more aged over time. But this, although it is dark, it's very bright in a way. Yeah. So I know it's a difficult concept, but you want to practice that. And maybe you might have some old green tea at home and you want to look at the color, because it is a tricky aspect to be able to recognize from a Long Jing, especially maybe if it was a floral one that was very, very bright, how it changed over time. And actually I have here, look at this one. This one here is actually a floral one. It's a floral one, but from 3 years ago it became so dark. So it's already fairly dark. So now we have spoken about the two different main processing of Long Jing. We have spoken about the age. Let's speak about the grades. And this is funny because in China, over the years, they always come up with the different shades of grades. And I read that sometime they even came up with more than 40 different grades. So it's almost impossible, let's say it's impossible really to distinguish between 40 and more different grades of the same tea. In my opinion, the way they did so many, because then at the end, everyone would try to sell and pretend that their grades are among the better one. And since there are so many grades, they can also fetch higher prices because, every step in going in from a better and better and better grade means higher and higher and higher price. And if my is a third grade of 40 Ts, must be relatively expensive. So my suggestion is forget about grades. First grade, second grade is, in my opinion, all bullshit. But you want to distinguish between just different grade in the sense that Long Jing, when very early in the spring, it comes out in relatively tiny leaves. You see here, it's a very tiny leaf. It's maybe 1 centimeter, a tiny bit more, maybe let's say it's half an inch long or even less. And this is the size that you're searching. So very tiny leaves. You have a lot of buds. This is actually a bud that I have here in my hand. It's just flattened down. And all the leaves are very consistent in size. So here again, you see there is a bud and the second leaves. Here there is another bud, and that is actually opening up. So very tiny and very consistent. That's usually a high grade. No, not usually. It's always a high grade because it's the very beginning of the season. But you have also grades that are a bit rougher. For example, this tea here is our current Long Jing standard. That is a more rougher grade, if you want. It's not yet super rough. It's not huge leaves, but it's kind of almost double the size of these tiny leaves that I have here. And it's also reflecting in the price and in the quality of the tea. Doesn't have to be bad, but it's not the top notch. And so at the moment we have a classic Long Jing, this one, then we have a superior Long Jing. And if you put down one next to each other, you clearly see that although they have been harvested in the same time, more or less, I mean the same year, one a bit later in spring, one a bit earlier, there is a fairly difference in size, and also all the leaves are less uniform between each other. There is more a mix up, if you want, in those larger leaves. But watch out, because larger leaves does not necessarily really mean bad quality, and in particularly you have to consider that in China the farmers tends to determine the price based on how tiny and how early the leaves were harvested, even if there were done some mistake during the production. So if your tea supplier, your shop, they don't select really carefully by taste, they might buy a very expensive tea and very tiny leaves that at the end maybe was harvested on a very rainy day, or the leaves were not dried correctly, and then results in an off taste. While a little bit of a rougher leaf may taste still very good if it is properly processed. And on top of that, there are other tea, like for example the Bao Hong that we have right now online, that is a tea actually very similar to Long Jing. It is also a Chao Xing, so a fried, a stir fried or actually roasted tea at high temperature and with the leaves actually flattened in the wok, and it has a rougher shape. Now, you can compare that rougher shape with the rougher shape of a Long Jing. It's actually relatively good quality. And I have a tip for you if you have been watching still now. Dimitri, that described all the new green tea of this year, told me that Bao Hong is the one he liked the most and is by far not the most expensive. So if you want the, Dimitri's insight tip, go for the Bao Hong, and you definitely should get really a very good quality price ratio, because it's not super expensive but is really a good thing. And yeah, with that, I hope that I was able to render a tiny bit the differences between the at the different grades of lunging. If you have any question, is a complex topic, please go ahead and put a comment, put the question in just below the video, and I will reply to the best of my knowledge. Now I see that actually the clouds are gone and I see the blue sky. So for me, it's time to discover Portland, Maine, and for you, maybe it's time to drink a Long Jing. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.